this morning was inspired by the work that we did previously, several mornings, on white privilege. And that was in response to the Black Lives Matter movement and awareness. So, and while that is important, there are other privileges that I certainly enjoy, and that's one that I've been thinking about for some time. Male privilege is where men take for granted that they are the power that they have simply because of their gender. Their male privilege is supported by laws, religious dogma, culture, habits, and it is a worldwide, it's a thing. First of all, I wanted to just ask, is there a difference between men and women? The answer, of course, is yes. I was thinking about where they're good in certain areas. Masculine energy, you use that to repair a car. Feminine energy, you can use to repair a relationship. And they don't work. The one does not work in the other. So there are strengths, and there are the divine masculine, the divine feminine. We talk about these. In our male-centric culture, oftentimes men have valued women less. In French, Pamela, and anybody else familiar with the French culture, there are two words for power: pouvoir and puissance. Feminine power is much more puissance and power from within, rather than power over, which would be pouvoir. There's an interesting book, comedy book by Sarah Cooper, who's kind of a media phenomenon lately, and it's called How to Be Successful Without Hurting Men's Feelings. It's obviously written for women, and it comes from the perspective that you want to be good, but not so good that you overshadow a man, because that creates problems. So it's very tongue-in-cheek, and yet how often have we seen examples of this? So we can look at male privilege through different lenses, and one would be, well, we can talk about work and career in just a moment here, and personal space, but I wanted to start off with just some ways in which women have it tougher in everyday life, and that I, and perhaps many other guys, kind of take for granted. Okay, mansplaining. Everybody's heard of that, right? Okay, a man explains to a woman something she already knows. It's something obvious, and yet he's the authority and she has to listen. Manspreading. And it happens on a park bench or a bus or a train, and a man spreads his legs much farther than he needs to, and the result being that the woman has less room. He has more than he needs, she has less. Here's another example: the longer lines at public bathrooms. Ever go to a concert, Hollywood Bowl, wherever, the women's line being 10 times as long as the man's line? And it's something that I gotta say, too many times I've taken that for granted. Okay, getting dressed. A former girlfriend of mine once tried to educate me, and she said on this subject, she said, "You guys don't realize how lucky you are to get ready in the morning. You don't have to put on foundation, highlighter, blush, eyeliner, shadow, lipstick, do your hair, dress, and accessorize. You just comb your hair, You throw on a shirt and pants and you're done. And pretty much that's about the way it often is. Here's another everyday circumstance that gets into some interpersonal aspects. Allison, my wife, she's a strong person. And yet, when her car needs repairs, she always asks me to come with her so that she won't get cheated, or they won't be tempted to cheat her simply because she's a woman. So having a man there makes her feel less a potential victim of overcharging or even condescending talk by the repair guy who's in his den, he's in his cave, and that's his world, and he's gonna have charge over whoever comes in there, how he treats them. So she doesn't like that. She always asks me to come along. Dealing with bureaucrats or functionaries of some sort, she often asks me to step in as William. She calls me William when I can get really tough. And when I feel that there's a wrong that needs to be righted, it's that righteous anger. So William is asked to come in and say, now, wait a minute, you told her this, but here's what you're doing. That's the opposite of what you told her. Who's your supervisor? And that straightens things out. Why should I have to do that? Simply because I'm a man. I don't enjoy doing that, by the way, but I do fulfill that task. One of my neighbors, a friendly neighbor, for those of you who know me, I have neighbors on different sides, and one of my friendly neighbors wanted to put in a fence between our properties, and I was very much in favor of the idea. And she hired a guy that she knew to build this fence. And at some point, she wasn't able to communicate with him. He would fly off on a handle, and she couldn't get her message across. So she asked me to be the intermediary. She'd say, well, don't tell him that I told you, but I think it should be such an, this way. There were some decisions to be made. So I would go to the guy and say, hey, why don't you do it this way? He goes, okay, sure. Whereas if she had said that, it would have met with resistance, and he would have done things his own way. I want to touch on work and career for a second. We've all know about the glass ceiling. Now, women also in business can be denigrated for feminine, quote, feminine traits that are seen as weak. Cooperation instead of competition. Accord instead of conflict. And if she steps outside a narrow parameter, then she's pulled back in by being called such things as a bitch if she's assertive, whereas a man would not. It would be a positive response that he would get. A man is passionate and full of conviction, and a woman is hysterical. It's deeply ingrained in our culture, some of these unwritten rules that women are supposed to be ladylike and defer to men. So we see that in the corporation. I talked about that Sarah Cooper's book. Now here's another example, and this is more, shall we say, visceral. So I heard an interview with a female soldier who had served in Iraq, and talking about something simple like going to the bathroom, especially at night. the risk that the women would run would be of being raped by the male soldiers who would be on, that they'd have to pass by or would be waiting uh, at the facility, and just go for it. So they assign, each woman is assigned a like a buddy, so that they can go together, so she'll be protected. But if it's the middle of the night, she said, you have to go, but your buddy is she's just dead tired. I can't go. I just can't go. We had a hard day today. I'm sorry. You go on your own. So she goes on her own, and she runs the risk. So she would carry a knife with her, a really wicked knife, and have it very obviously in her belt there, ready to pull out. And she would have to, just make that visible. So when this didn't happen, there's another option too to female soldiers, which is to just not drink very much water in the evening. And she told about sometimes that you would see. Do you remember during the Iraq War, when there would be lists of deaths, military deaths? They would list the name. And she said, hey, did you ever consider it strange that you would see so many 20-year-old women dying of, quote, natural causes? That's what that was, dehydration, because if they drank water, then bad things could happen. So I just wanted to, that's something that's stuck with me ever since. And I, can we ever make it right to, you can't take a death back, but that's an example of male privilege. A guy, no problem. He wants to get up, go to the John, he does it. Okay, so personal space. Men feel that they have a right to exclude women, like a boys' club. Online gaming. Now, there's an example. I've kind of followed that off and on. There's an organization called Feminist Frequency, and they work for inclusion of women in as streamers or online gamers. However, women are harassed, and in the rudest ways and in the meanest ways. So they're about sticking up for young women that want to participate in online conversations and games and so forth. Then it's not only unwanted exclusion, but there's unwanted inclusion. Okay, obvious example, a well-known man that we heard about, caught on tape bragging about grabbing a woman's genitals. I'm not going to say the name, we all know. But when have you ever heard a woman bragging about grabbing men by their genitals? I don't know of a case like that. On the street, women can be judged by their appearance. Oh, she's a 7. She's a 4. That's sort of on a 1 to 10. When I was in college, I remember some of the things I remember most are comments that were made. There was a woman, a very attractive woman I was just having a conversation with, and there were some guys that I knew passing by and kind of gave me the eye, and then later one of the guys goes in front of the other guys, "What was that I saw you with earlier?" What was that? Not who, but what. It was an objectification because she was attractive. So women have to deal with such things on the street as catcalls, looks, sexually focused looks. And it's not just, hey, baby, wanna, just that sort of a thing, but it's also, there are some subtle ways. was walking once at lunch. I was working at an office in Beverly Hills and walking with a couple other guys back from lunch. And on the sidewalk, there was a woman who was, I would say, very attractive. And as we passed, she had a frown on her face. And one of these guys who fancied himself, I guess, a ladies' man or whatever, as we were passing, he says, kind of under his breath, but loud enough for us to hear, "Come on, lady, smile." He wanted her to smile for his enjoyment. He thought, such a beautiful woman should have a beautiful smile. She was there for him, basically, in his viewpoint. So how often does a man look at a woman and decides that he wants to engage, a smile, maybe a hello, maybe a "come on, lady" smile kind of thing. Now here, let me just flip this for a second. Here's a bottom line. If I walk down a street and I see a woman, I might think certain things about her. I might have certain opinions.
No, or none.
About her, and or have feelings about her, but let me see. But here's a feeling that will never come up for me. Then I will never have the feeling of fear that she might catcall at me, or expect a certain response from me, or get angry at me because I didn't have the reaction that she wanted. And ultimately, I will never have to worry about the fear that she might follow me, want to engage me, want to escalate by getting close to me, taking advantage of me, raping me, or killing me. I will never have that fear. Now that is male privilege. I am free of that fear. I don't mean to get so heavy right now. I'm going to get lightened up for just a moment. Play devil's advocate. Sometimes we hear, but hey, isn't there female privilege? What about chivalry? Well, here's Allison's take on that. Men hold the door open for you because they think they're going to get some, but they're really not. So that's just a lighter take on things. And I would like to, right now, just kind of take a moment to check in with everybody and get any questions. There's some more material that we can go back to, but as much time as we want to take right now. I'd love to get reactions from people, personal experiences, anything of that sort. So let me, I'm going to start with Mary Grace and then Lisa.
I wanted to jump right in. I really appreciate your topic a lot this morning, Bill. You know, I recognize what you're describing when you were sharing about how Allison brings you as an ally or protector. In my 20s and 30s, I did that. I was certainly raised that way by my mom. She taught me to be coy and coquettish because that got a lot more with men, to be cute, coy, and coquettish. So I did that in my 20s, 30s. And then I learned differently. And so I would say I do not do any of that at all in the last probably 25 years, progressively. And it's a choice. You know, there's a subtle thing. It's not so subtle. I've heard the expression, and I believe it's still largely true. Power comes from how a woman looks and what a man does. There is power in a woman's appearance. There can be. That's a subtle thing, and a female privilege. That's a subtle thing that isn't discussed so much. But my experience is it's true. And things have changed dramatically. You know, in my lifetime, I'm 75. So in the last 50 years, it's changed dramatically. And I certainly recognize, you know, what you're describing. One thing I remember when I was a teenager in my 20s, there would be a woman who's raped, and they'd say, well, yeah, but did you see how short her skirt was? I remember my mother saying, when it was raped, she'd say, yes, but how was she dressed? As if that gave permission, and she was inviting it.
Right.
So I'll stop there. I could say a lot more, but I appreciate
that's great. Well, maybe we'll come back too. Let me get
Thomas, would you mute yourself?
Oh, okay.
yes, thank you. So I want to get Lisa, and then Nita, and then Hal, and then Linda. Okay.
So I'm very connected to this theme. As some of you know, I was a school teacher for a long time and saw the indoctrination of it really young in an individual's life. This idea that men are different than women, that boys are different than girls. But I also experienced it myself because in 1970, I helped my father open a restaurant, and we became partners, and then he got very sick and he had to retire. And it was very difficult at that time for people to believe that a young girl at my age, which was in my early 20s, could operate a business. So I had really built in prejudices when I was younger. And I had to go above and beyond myself to prove that I, yes, indeed, ran a restaurant and was competent. My question to you, Bill, is it's so ingrained in our culture. How do you think that we're going to shift this cultural belief that women are still different than men? I know recently that there is a shift, but I still don't see it in a lot of situations. So
Okay.
what do you think what is it gonna take for us to have this change?
You know, I think it is happening. I think there are more doors that are open for women, at least in our country. Now, we do see this in other countries. Terrible oppression of women, and acid in the face, and quote honor killings, which are actually dishonor killings, but they're called that. I see it happening very slowly in this country. We don't even have the Equal Rights Amendment yet. We have 38 states that have ratified it, but we still haven't made it a thing yet because let's see, Melanie's got something. Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to show us something, Melanie. If you do, let me know. No problem. So, yeah, where was I there? Yeah, there is a lot of resistance. That's the problem. And I was going to mention that we have a hierarchy. There is a hierarchy of value. It's unwritten, but it places white over black or people of color. It places men over women. It places Christians over non-Christians. It places straight over gay, rich over poor, on and on and on. There are people are assigned values in this hierarchy. That's a theory that I've been working with for a few years, and it takes a lot to break out of that. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of that we see. Oh goodness, all the time, and it's in the news too. So what does it take, Lisa? I don't know. I guess consciousness and a wanting to change and a not wanting to go back to the way things used to be. I look at early American. I've studied early American history and how even pre-United States, when these were still colonies, there were certain, I mean, the ways that women were treated, and down through the ages too. It's women, if they were healers, they were called witches. Joan of Arc, military leader. No. She must be a witch. She has to be killed. Just on and on and on. So I guess it's a very slow process that we're in, and we just have to talk about it, maybe make people aware of it. Those are the things that come to mind for me. Let's see, Nita, please.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, I find myself bristling at the subject. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you telling me something that everybody in this room, every woman in this room has not lived and gone through? And then I like back it up. And it's like, okay, all right. Like everything, this is coming to the fore. And I really appreciate you bringing it to the fore. And my reaction, like I say, is I can't watch Mad Men because it completely exemplifies what happened to me when I went to college and got a degree and was basically told that I was not good enough to work with men. And like I say, every woman here has a story of something more violent than that, I'm sure. The thing you said that really struck me deep when you said, I am not afraid of a woman killing me. I think that says women, of course there are exceptions, but most of women in prison for murder have killed an abusive husband. So women are on the deep end of that, and we all know it. And I'm waiting for the pendulum to swing to the other side, and we finally get a woman president, and we clean up this mess and move on.
Yeah, here. When you talk about the women being told they can't do that, Allison's mother was a real pioneer who passed away recently, was a real pioneer when she was in a master's degree program in microbiology at UCLA. The professor, like right away, took her aside and he said, well, you're Mexican, you're a woman. He said, you're on your own. Meaning he did not have her back if she faced backlash from other people in the department, students, faculty, whoever it might be. He said, you're on your own. We have come a little way since then, thank goodness.
Actually, he said,
wait,
you're a Mexican, I don't know what to do with you.
He also said, you're a Mexican, I don't know what to do with you. Allison just added some input to the additional quote to the story. Hal, please. Unmute there, Hal.
I think you're talking about two different things. Men being attracted to women That's not going to stop. Men are going to be attracted to women. Women are going to be attracted to men. But on the other hand, what you are talking about is equality for women. In school, it's been proven that teachers will call on a boy before they'll call on a girl who raised their hands.
Okay.
And I think it's changed somewhat, but maybe not enough. In business, I've spoken to people who feel women should not get equal pay for equal work because after all, they're going to quit, they're going to get married and have children. Well, I don't think that's right. I think they should get equal pay for equal work. I think women should be treated the same way a man is being treated. But as far as attraction and being afraid to walk to a bathroom, that's not going to stop. There are certain kinds of men who are going to seek out and rape a woman or attack a woman, and women don't attack men. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but the answer to equal rights for equal women, I think that lies with a bill that the government should pass. Equal pay, equal rights.
Yeah, it's called the Equal Rights Amendment.
Yes, I know, but it hasn't passed.
You know,
It hasn't been signed. They're talking about it, but nothing's being done about it.
exactly.
And
Thank you.
there are women executives who are CEOs. I think women are, if not just as capable, perhaps more capable than men in many instances. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to follow in that before we go to Linda, there was an act passed by Congress in 1994, the Violence Against Women Act. And will it be renewed? It was recently turned down. It was recently turned down. Why do we not want to protect women from violence? I guess, as I say, talk to your congressperson, talk to your senator. But here's an opportunity to put into law something that I think is a necessary law. Linda, please.
You know, when you bring up this topic, I'm just reminded of an experience I had when I was a journalist. I was working in a television station in San Jose, California, and that was 30 years ago, but it still stays with me because it was profound. We had a big square in the middle of the newsroom where people could, you know, gather and talk, and it was mostly male. I think I was one of 2 females that worked there, 3, I don't know. It was very, very few females. And I'm a hard news reporter, so I never considered that I'm different. But in this moment, we get a lot of stuff sent to the newsroom. And what was sent was a silicone breast. And that package was probably meant for someone who could understand it. But the person that opened it was a sports reporter. And he went into his young child and went, "Look at this, guys, look at this, oh my God." And then it just became a locker room. And I'm sitting there trying to do my work at the computer. I felt something. I'm thinking, I mean, this is a long time ago, but I felt like, oh, this isn't right. This isn't right. But I didn't have the courage or the wisdom or the ability to say something. So I just got up and I left the room. Later on, the news director came over to me and he said, "Did that bother you?" And I said, "Yes." Now, I don't know what happened, but that was the texture of where I was working. And that is the texture of the news business, where it wasn't even a thought of grown men that this might be offensive to a woman. So I just say that because we're not there anymore. We're not there anymore. We've got human resources department. You can file a complaint. There are a lot of things that are helpful, and we are moving in that direction. We have the Me Too movement. We can say things that need to be said.
Mhm.
It's changing. I believe that.
Thank you. Yeah, in the acting biz, as Hal probably knows, they now have intimacy coordinators who are there to make sure that nobody, really feels that way. So that's something formal and something official that's happened in response. Okay, let's see. Oh yes, Patricia and
Inger,
yeah, I think Patricia and then Inger, and then Ron, please.
and Eugenia.
Pamela also.
Well, okay, I see a lot of people. Okay, all right, let me set the list up then. All right, so we got Patricia, and then we got Inger, and then Ron, Pamela.
Eugenia.
I saw her. I saw her. And then Bonnie. Okay. So that's it for the moment. Okay, Patricia, please.
Okay, I worked with survivors of domestic violence for almost 15 years, and giving them therapy, it was very hard for them to change their own narrative because there is this patriarchal element. I mean, they grew up in this culture where a wife should accept anything in order to keep the peace of the home. And also the religious aspect was incredible how some women went from marriage to marriage, and some women got in marriages where the perpetrator hurt them even more than the prior one. So when I heard your story about the female soldiers, I could not bear that story, how tremendous their silence, the women's silence, is so detrimental for their well-being in every aspect. I was so touched by it. But the thing about the patriarchy is that we had it for so long, and it's so we don't realize how many decisions we make trying to be progressive, but we still, men and women, progressive men and women, we still have that inside of us. So that question, what do we do? It's, as a mother of a boy, I did as much as I could to bring him up with that awareness. And but there is so much we can do, but that's one little step forward to bring up young boys to become progressive men that are able to see the condition of the women.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Inger, please.
First of all, I just want to thank you so much for dealing with this topic. I thank you for the wonderful job you're doing with that, and the thought and the love that's come into what you've done. In 1980, I did my dissertation for my doctor at UCLA, where I participated in the first government-sponsored study in sexual harassment. And my dissertation was about assignment of responsibility but for sexual harassment. So spent quite a bit of time talking to women, their stories, because I dealt mostly with the most severe cases for my dissertation. And I felt that at that time, most of the companies sort of didn't ignore it. They didn't think it existed or to any degree, which of course was a lie. So I think we've come a long ways from that time, certainly in terms of women's ability to be listened to. But I think there's also another aspect, and that is I think that for some of these guys, they kind of got lost because I think there was an old way of dealing with women that they thought was okay, and it really wasn't. And it took a while for a lot of them to sort of get that idea. And I think the hope is that the young people that I talk to now, I mean, they're thinking differently. I don't find as much sexual harassment ideas with young people. I see more equality. I see more friendships and learning to deal differently with each other.
Hmm.
But I do think that some of the men are really also very confused. They're afraid to approach women because they think they'll be misunderstood or they're not doing it right and whatever it is. Now, of course, I'm not talking about the bullies. They're always going to do their thing. But I think this, so I commend you so much for the bringing up this topic. And I think it's really worthwhile exploring and
Thank you.
examining.
Thank
So
you. And I think just a quick response, and we're not going to have too much time to finish this right now. We could pick this up another morning, but just in response to that, when you say that young men now they're not really sure how to approach women, I think that's a good thing because they're not going to just jump in with their own assumptions. Say, well, how does she want to be? She's going to maybe think about that a little bit better. Pamela.
Hi there. Two things. Tim, I don't know whether I missed the first minute where I'm very interested in how you are so interested and knowledgeable about this topic, but that might be a 3-hour performance. Did you say that why you're so passionate about this?
Well, no, I didn't. I have been for a long time. And I've always felt very comfortable in the company of women. There's an online group that I actually belong to, and it's Feminine Power, and I'm one man in a group of 200 women. I've always, it's just because
Thanks. Okay.
So much that I get that's very positive. So, and have felt this way for years. So.
I know it's a very short time. That's why I'm saying I'm very interested in that group. And, each one of us as individuals here, we have a mix of male and female and, all kinds of stuff. And we're all a little different. I've had the experience of being the first woman, one of the first 2 or 3 women to open up the way for women in 2 jobs. And one was being a taxi driver in Manhattan, in New York City. They had no women as taxi drivers. And it was, I applied and they hired 2 of us or something, 3 of us. And I was driving and some people were nice, but this guy comes in and he was so horrified to be driven by a woman in a taxi. He absolutely started screaming, had a fit, started banging in the inside of the taxi. And the angel of luck, in my mirror, I saw the patrol car right behind me. I stopped at the red light, opened my door, called for the police, and they pulled his body out. And I trust that in time he'll get used to that. The other time was Ringling Brothers. They only had male clowns, and they were running out of people to open up a second circus. And the concept of having women clowns wasn't in the brain. But somehow I got in there and we opened the way for women to become clowns. Because I have a lot of male and female in me. I feel it, so I'm very comfortable with both. And I do think in America and in other parts of the world, we are getting more rights for women and men. I mean, just more understanding about the whole thing, which is really wonderful. And thank you so much for bringing this up and sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pamela. I absolutely love the way that you break barriers, and you've done it in other ways too, I know, in your life. So I applaud you for that. Wow, we're looking at, we got what, just 3 minutes left? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah,
Um,
we figure about 8:50, so about 3 minutes, right?
Okay.
And you know, let's schedule another morning too.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. So let me see. Oh my gosh, and we got, oh, I forgot, I didn't get Ron either. Can you guys just take one, Ron, take 1 minute?
Yeah.
Bill, I'll do better than that. Let's wait till the next time. I'll speak the next time. You finish it off. It's a brilliant presentation.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And Eugenia, quick 1 minute. Unmute.
Yeah, that's my hardest part. I'm grateful that you brought this up because, as we can tell, it's huge. Having been, I just would like to say where we are and where we've been. We've come a long ways. We have a long ways to go, and it oscillates, it seems to me, as far as the equality for women. Something I think that we can do on a regular, everyday basis is inclusive language, like when firefighter, mail carrier,
Well,
where-
what about female carrier?
well, or
Right.
just mail carrier. Oh,
No, I know.
I just took me a minute, dear. I got it, dear. Yeah, I worked in very male dominated industries. I was a firefighter, and you know, women aren't supposed to do that.
No.
Man the booth is one of my big irritants. So you can staff the booth. And work tries, you know, they have access chamber instead of manholes. So I mean, just our everyday language, I think, is very important in how we can change views of what's acceptable. And androgyny. I always thought if I had a kid, I would give it an androgynous name because I wouldn't want it discriminated against because of people knowing its sex. So I think androgyny really has a lot of value.
Beautiful.
And that's enough.
Thank you. Terrific. And I see we didn't get a chance to do Bonnie Janofsky, but let's you and Ron will be the first ones the next time. I just want to thank you all very much for your participation, for your attention. Thank you so much.